right, welcome back to our Return to Learn Task Force, which seems silly now because we've already returned. So maybe we should maybe we should change the name of our task force. So happy to see everyone here today on our, is this our 13th day of school? Oh boy. Okay, let's not have any superstition today because things have been going fairly well so far. So we have a loose agenda today. I have a couple of items that I want to go through with the team, but if we could take a couple of minutes, if there's anything that anybody would like to say that's a celebration or something you want to share, if we can take a couple minutes to start out with some positives, that would be awesome.
I would say that my students in the room that I facilitate in are working extremely hard. The fact that they can be there for 5 hours and work as independently as they're able to do. Like there's a couple of kids that I know I have to check in on and help them figure out where to go. But for the most part, I am super impressed by those kids. They're really, really pushing through, and it's impressive to watch.
It sure is. I agree. Yes. Round of applause.
There's some teachers that are just coming up with some really new and innovative ways to communicate and teach children. It is very impressive, and it's nice to learn from colleagues, and they're always happy to share all of the new techniques and things that are working for them. So I'm really grateful for the staff that is just, they're crushing it. So yay.
Agreed.
I brought both of my kids to picture day at the middle school yesterday, and I was curious how all that was going to work. And I thought it was so well organized. Nate was out there greeting people, and it was unbelievably organized how all those students fit in, distanced in a short period of time. So whoever planned that, really well done. It was a good experience.
Awesome job, Mr. Blackmer. We have loved the picture day experience, every moment of it. It went great. We're so happy to see all our.
I just want to say I second what Andy said. We're fully remote, so all three of my kids are home. So it was our first time in the schools yesterday, and it was super fun just to be there. It ran well. I got to chat with Nate, and it was really a good experience. On top of that, I'd like to say our experience being home with the three kids remote has really, it's been wonderful. We've gotten into a routine now. I have a new appreciation for what September is like for educators. So thank you to all of you. But now that we're in a routine, all three of my kids are engaged and learning and interacting with their classmates and their teachers. And it's been a positive thing. So thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Absolutely. Maybe one more if anyone else has anything to share before I start saying how great everyone is too.
I do. We had kindergarten has been in for a week and a half so far, almost 2 weeks. And we've gotten a lot of really nice emails from parents of kids who are in person and saying that how happy their kids are when they come home and how much they've loved it, which was really important to us since it looks so different. So that's a celebration, a huge one for us in itself.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with all the comments. So impressed by our children, both the ones learning at home, the ones learning remotely in school. When I walk through the buildings and I see our teachers engaged on Zooms, our teachers who are fully remote, working with their kids on Zoom, just like it's very hard to get enthusiasm up when you're staring at a screen, but I'm telling you, our teachers are making it happen. And the ones who are in person, the kids are engaged on that remote platform. There's a lot of independence that's being fostered right now. Everybody's maintaining what they need to for our health and safety. So impressed with our parents. We've had, I think 100% self-certified before coming to school at the elementary level for a couple of days. Our custodians, we've definitely had to move kids, and move classes when kids have symptoms. Our custodians are right on top of it, cleaning those rooms, making sure everyone gets back in and is safe. I see Kelly on the call. Is Kathy Sullivan on our call as well? Because I will shout out these nurses until the end of time. They've been doing an amazing job, not only with the kids, but with supporting teachers and making sure they're answering all their questions. Our administrative team, which they're on the call right now, I don't even have words. Just so amazing, this group of people who have been transitioning as a new team. So impressed by our early primary teachers. I've seen our social workers in action with the kiddos on campus. It really is a tremendous accomplishment. And I met with the PTO yesterday. I see Carrie on the call. The PTO is right behind us, supporting us. Appreciate Ann and Andy serving on the board and being supportive of what we're doing. So just can't thank everyone enough, and would say that we continue to problem solve and encounter challenges. I don't want to paint the picture that everything is going perfectly, because there definitely continue to be challenges. We just met as a tech kind of group. We are problem solving some of our tech issues. We definitely have had some, and we'll probably continue to have some. Something that we've talked about is, teachers, and we get into school, and yes, September is a crazy time. But we sometimes forget that we are in a context and we are in a larger community, and the larger community outside of our school and all of our support systems, meaning all of the programs we use, all the technology we use, all the places we purchase our technology from, we are not existing in this COVID bubble alone. The other parts of our society are also encountering the exact same challenges. So the tech world is encountering all those same challenges too. The companies providing the resources, the programs, the apps, the hardware, everybody is struggling to kind of make sure that that this works, because we're not the only ones doing remote instruction and using a lot more tech. So we continue to problem solve through a lot of big issues. And the one that I'm bringing to the team today is assessment. So we know that we have some assessment windows coming up, and a good thing about being a part of our state and a part of our Lake County network is that I'm able to talk to a lot of districts about how things are going, and have been trying to keep in touch with districts that are especially all remote with all the kids at home, and how that assessment piece is going at home. And I wish I had wonderful things to report about seamless technology, but I don't. MAP has been experiencing some real significant issues with remote testing at home. And so we are looking at our plan right now and kind of rethinking fall assessments and kind of problem solving through some issues here. We had a teacher work group with administrators that talked through some of our assessments in the summer, and to prepare us for what assessment would look like this year. And our goal was, how can we get the most information with the least amount of assessments? How can we get the information we need to inform instruction and differentiate for our students without over testing and trying to really assess the kids as we have in the past, because this is just a very, very different environment. And at the time, I think we were hopeful that MAP would be one of those things that we could do either from home or from school. And at this point, from what I'm hearing, I'm not sure that that's a reality. So we are thinking through some possibilities for bringing as many students back on campus to do MAP testing as possible, which means all of the remote at home kiddos too, if we can. Or we're rethinking which grade levels and which students really need to take the MAP assessment. So I'm providing that to you as an update because it has to do with our remote situation and our tech infrastructure and kind of problem solving through some of those issues. And it's definitely a challenge. So any thoughts on that, or any questions, or just adds to the conversation on assessment?
I have a question. When is the window for when would we be talking about? It's usually September, right?
Right. So I set the window as September 21st through October 2nd. That would be next week. And at the very least, we're going to be pushing back to closer to that second week. But it's always a long window because you want to make sure you have enough time to get all the assessments done and makeups done. The other issue is that, and this is not abnormal, we do have some very high achieving and conscientious kids who want to do a great job on the MAP assessment. We have a lot of kids that will take a long time to do that assessment. And if we're going to do the assessment, we want to make sure that we have enough time and we have the bandwidth in terms of technology to let the kids take the time they want to take in order to do their best on that assessment. So that's another piece that we're taking into consideration as well, because we don't want to change the testing experience in that way either, where the kids would have a limited amount of time or we would increase the stress and anxiety on that end of things. Because I think in the past, we've really allowed kids to take the time they need. So that's something that we're also considering. Any other questions or thoughts on that? All right, so I am hopeful that when we come back together, we will obviously have already problem solved and thought our way through this, and we'll have an update, and hopefully it'll be a very positive one on assessment. We also have other assessments that we do with kids that are a little bit more, low tech and a little bit more focused on curriculum and instruction. So we'll be having those conversations with teachers as well. Okay, the other big piece that I want to talk through is this idea of trimester 2 and what our plans would be for trimester 2. And as you know, when we put our plan out, we talked about giving parents the option to opt in or opt out of, out of the in-school learning experience, but that remote learning would always be our platform, at least for this year. That hasn't changed. The state is mandating that we always have a remote option for families open. I can tell you that anecdotally, the communication that I've received from community members is very positive about what's happening, either remote at home or remote in school. But I've also kind of keep receiving the question of, remote families wanting to get into the in-school experience. I think it's a credit to what's happened and everything that we've done that families are feeling comfortable with coming back to school, because we've been able to keep everyone healthy and safe and adhere to the guidelines. And so now the challenge for us is to think about what we can offer to families. So I will tell you what hasn't changed, and that is the guidance from the Illinois Department of Health has not changed. The Lake County Department of Health has not changed their guidance. And the guidance that really impacts the number of students we can bring back to school is the distance we need to keep students apart and individuals apart. That is really the math problem we're dealing with. And it really is just that. We need to keep everyone 6 feet apart, and that determines how many individuals we can have in our buildings and in our facilities and in our classrooms. So as we know, those of us who are in person have seen, there are some rooms that have some spaces available. We have kept some alternative spaces available in our schools for closing down classrooms and moving classes of kids and having those spaces available so that we can transfer classes. We have had students go home with symptoms almost every day, a couple a day from each school. And so we've had to utilize those extra rooms. But what we're working on now is just kind of trying to figure out, based on what we've seen, are there other spaces or opportunities that we can open up within the buildings to have more students come back with us? I will just say we are not going to compromise on following the guidance, and it is just that, it's guidance. There's no Department of Health police or regional office police, but we will maintain the guidance because it's in the best interest of all of us that we do. The only thing that is tough is that it will limit the amount of kids we can have back. So what we have been talking about is surveying our students who are learning at home to find out how many would be interested in coming back for either a hybrid, a couple of days a week or a full in-person experience. And then once we had those numbers, we would have to look at what we could do. And there's a couple of ways this could go. One is that we might not get a lot of interest, and we might be able to accommodate some more families based on our spaces, open up a couple more spaces in each building. But if we get a lot of interest, there's a couple of ways we could address that too. One would be, we maximize our space and do some kind of a lottery, or we shift students who have been at home and prioritize them to come into school so that we can have an equal or equitable opportunity for the in-school learning experience. Or we shift the entire model to some kind of a hybrid, which would be maybe 2 days in for some people, everyone would be in for 2 days, and then some would be remote on that 5th day. So there's lots of different ways this could look. I can tell you that I really don't have an idea at this point without surveying our families who are remote. I don't have an idea of how many families, what percentage would want to come in for some kind of in-person instruction. And again, whatever model we shift to, there's always that possibility that if the virus presents itself in our environment, that we would have to go to remote learning at home anyway for certain groups, classrooms, or schools at a certain time. So with that, any questions or thoughts or discussion on that piece?
Just a thought, and I know there wouldn't be an answer to this, but obviously that would impact classes as far as like some classes have a remote teacher or an in-person teacher. And I don't know if that necessarily would constitute like reshuffling of classes.
It might.
But just something to kind of consider. And I'm guessing parents would want to know that as they were surveyed too.
Yeah, we would try to be as transparent as we could be with the survey so that people would know what they were opting into. Unfortunately, just like we were in the position in the summer of not knowing based on the numbers, you're kind of like, which comes first, But yes, that is the goal, to try to be as transparent as we can so people really understand what it could look like. That's a good point, Jackie. Thanks. I think it's great news that we are even in the position of still thinking about bringing kids in and potentially even expanding that option. I can tell you that most of the districts, or every district actually, that has started out remotely right now is building a plan to bring kids back in. I don't know of any district that is planning to stay remote for the entire year, because districts like us, schools like we have done with bringing kids in successfully, they've been watching us, and there's, it's not just us. There's a few districts in our area, especially, and then many across the state who have done some sort of blended or in-person learning model. And that's a great thing, that it's been successful enough that I don't know of any district who's planning on just staying fully remote all year. Everyone's sort of building that plan right now. So I think it's great that we're here talking about it and trying to do what we can to bring all of our kids in. I had a lunch with a couple of middle school boys a couple weeks ago, and I picked their brains a little bit about how things are going. One is hybrid and one is in person. Both felt like it was going really well. And I think what we want is obviously the best situation for all of our kids, to make sure that we can facilitate their learning in the best way possible. So again, we will continue to stay strict and conservative on the guidance, make sure that everyone stays safe and healthy, but do what we can to bring as many back as possible. Any other thoughts or questions on that?
I just had a quick question about time, like timeline. Do we have a timeline for when that survey would go out?
So we, as an admin team, just talked yesterday. It's a good question, Vanessa. We're thinking about right after back to school nights. The curriculum nights will probably include a short video from me that will talk a little bit about the trimester 2 situation and introduce the survey so that teachers don't have to deal with that question in your back to school nights, because I know that'll be a big one. And we really want to let you focus just on curriculum and what kids will be learning this year. So that intro video from me will probably talk a little bit about our plans and what we need from parents so that you could show parents when you have your curriculum night, and just take that off the table so that everyone can focus on the curricular goals for the year. So
I have a thought about just the transparency part. I think it would be very, very beneficial for the parents to have another like Zoom question and answer even before that survey went out, to discuss like exactly this, to say like, if you're in home right now and you opt for going back to school, there's a very high potential your teacher might change and or classrooms will break up and different things like that. Because I think that's kind of scary to think that my kids would have to shift partway through the school year with a whole nother teacher and, you know, and have the first 14 days or whatever it is, or 13, all over again.
thanks, Carrie. That's a good point. I think that's probably a good idea, like just an evening, like a morning and an evening session, just to let people come and ask their questions. Yep. That's a good point. And that really was the goal as we talked about planning for this year. And kind of remember earlier in the summer, we had talked about really teams of teachers working together to plan that remote platform so that if we did have to do the shifting, it wouldn't feel, you know, it'd feel more seamless. But I still get the idea that, you know, we're getting attached to our schedules. We haven't had too many people shift around yet, thank goodness. You know, people are staying healthy and doing what they need to do to stay healthy. So that's a great thing. But I also get how that would impact our kids at that point too. The other thing that I just wanted to talk really quickly through, if there's no other questions, are on the metrics that we were watching. I still meet with the Lake County Health Department twice a week. We still go through kind of the Region 9 metrics, which are Lake and McHenry County. Region 9 has had some spikes recently, and the Lake County Health Department is saying that a lot of that is driven by McHenry. They're not concerned about what's going on in Lake County. We also look at our zip code information, which happens to be looking very good right now. Our zip code's doing well. And we also are looking at the data from inside our schools now that we're in, and just monitoring the health and wellness of our students and staff, and knock on wood, so far that's been good too. I have used every platform that I possibly can and will continue all year to do this, to remind folks, staff and families, that our ability to provide in-person instruction almost completely depends on what we do outside of school. We can control a lot of things in the building. You know, we make sure people are apart, we're wearing masks, we're doing the, you know, the distancing and the cleaning and all those things. But once people leave our buildings, we can't control what people do. So if there's family parties or sleepovers or backyard barbecues or vacations, I can't emphasize enough that any spot can be a hot spot if we're not doing what we should be doing. Meaning, Lake Bluff could be a very dangerous situation for you if you happen to be with somebody that happened to be with somebody else that wasn't protecting themselves. So large get-togethers are not okay. We are still under phase 4. We don't want large get-togethers. You know, we want to keep kids and teachers apart. We do the best we can, but we still see sometimes kids wander off our campus and a couple of feet later are taking their masks off and riding bikes. And believe me, I get it. As a mom, you know, of 3 kids who are dying for connection, in-person connection, I get it, you know, but we need to try to keep each other safe so that we can keep this going. I really don't want to have to make that call to say we're shutting down classrooms or grades because of a party or because of some kind of vacation or sleepover. We just need to keep watching this. We've got a ways to go. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Even when a vaccine becomes available, not everyone is going to take it. We know that already. People are going to be very nervous about taking it. You know, some of these things have been developed quickly. We don't know the efficacy around it. So we are going to be in this situation for a while. And I know it feels like a lot of work, you know, it feels like a lot of extra to be bringing the masks all the way, all the places, and doing all those things. But like Brian started our meeting with, our kids are adjusting pretty well and doing what they need to do to be here. And so to extend that beyond to outdoor activities or get-togethers with friends probably wouldn't be so bad, and it would keep us in a much healthier and safer environment here at school, which we know is just really, really important for kids.
So I had reached out to you and mentioned this before. Is there some sort of social contract or handbook, just something amendment that like we can send out to parents who I think it would be beneficial as a gentle reminder to practice the same things that we're requesting our children to be doing in school? Because I mean, I don't know why, but people love to call me and tell me things that are going around in town. And, you know, like, just like you guys can't police outside of school, it's nobody else's business, but maybe suggest, you know, if you are gathering in a larger group than normal, perhaps you do the 10-day, not quarantine, but isolation, in the sense that, you know, there are no symptoms coming back to school and putting everybody at risk. I think some people just kind of forget that.
Yep. I fully agree with you. Our handbook is going to be coming out next week. It had to go through a few different reviews from our attorneys because of just all the different things that are in the handbook and the adjustments that needed to be made this year for our, the things that we're doing to keep everyone safe. But when we send out that handbook, we are going to send out a reminder of like exactly what you just said. Yeah.
Lisa, if I may, Carrie's comment reminded me of one thing that I tried to underscore in an email that went home, I think last Friday. While I certainly appreciate parents willing and able to keep their kids home for illness-related issues or concerns about illness, we want to continue to support that idea. One of the challenges that we are facing, I know in this building specifically, but perhaps also in the elementary school, are those families that are in person sort of considering the in-person option more as an option as opposed to a commitment, where they're sending emails to say, hey, my kid's in 5 days, but we're going to be traveling, and so we'll be remote for the next week. Or we will be choosing not to come in with my hybrid student for these 2 days. And while we can make that adjustment, we also do have families that have expressed interest in being in person. And when we have empty seats in the building and are telling others that we can't accommodate them, I have a bit of a philosophical issue with that. So I would just ask those that are watching today to consider that if it does work better for your family to be fully remote, we respect that. And we'll certainly take that request at any time. Moving from in-person to fully remote is something we can accommodate. It's more challenging, though, as we talk about bringing people in and asking them to commit to being in person. So I hope it's okay that I reinforce that in this.
Thank you. Yes, that is something we've been talking about as well.
I would echo the same at elementary, and my letter is coming this week. So I absolutely agree with Nate. Thank you for mentioning that.
And our teachers have been working really hard to make sure that that remote experience is effective. And we have a couple different models, and I'm always a proponent of a couple of different ways of doing things, because I think that's the only way you get to the best solution is when you try a couple of different ways to do things. That's the only way you can actually evaluate, right? And see what works the best. So I appreciate our teams kind of trying different approaches to this situation this year, because we're learning a lot through their experience and through their hard work, and we appreciate it. And it's helping us as we move forward, because again, we know this is not short term. As we're moving forward to look at the equipment we need and to look at the scenarios that work best, it has really helped us. But I will say, both the in-person and remote at home families have expressed to me major improvements over the spring, and that is of course due to the hard work of our staff and administrators who have just been relentlessly pursuing the best options and plans for our kids. And I couldn't be more grateful. So I, again, don't want to paint the rosiest picture here. Our teachers are working really hard. They're exhausted. I'm sure people who are on social media see not just our teachers, teachers everywhere. This is hard, no matter if you're remote or if you're in person. What we're doing is difficult. It's different than any other year we've experienced. And we got a lot of people watching to see that we're doing a good job in education. And that's a lot of pressure right now. So I just appreciate everyone's hard work. I appreciate the partnership of the community with us in trying to make this happen, because we really do want the best for our kiddos here. So I've kept you 2 minutes over. Unless there's anything else, we can call it a day.
Is it,
Brian,
sorry, is it too late to throw something out about the assessment piece?
No,
So
go ahead.
one thought that I had would be, at least at the middle school, have a day that any at-home students were interested to come in. I mean, we have classrooms that are set up currently spaced out for 6th, 7th, 8th grade students kind of in pods. But if we had like an 8th grade day and 6th and 7th grade was at home, and maybe they were synchronous their full day, just to help, you know, the kids that are used to being here, help them kind of with their being involved in their class, but kind of alternate those days and have an 8th grade testing day and bring in as many kids and families that are willing to send those 8th graders in and use those already spaced out rooms. And then have, you know, as a 7th grade teacher on that day, I'm synchronous with my 7th grade students teaching science all day. Same thing with social studies, LA, math, all that stuff. But then use the 8th grade teachers to facilitate that testing, because we could do all of 8th grade in one day, but kind of set it up that way. And then have another day that's 7th grade, use the 7th grade teachers to facilitate the testing, 6th grade, whatever. If it's a 7th grade day, then 6th and 8th are at home, everybody's at home, but they're synchronous their full day, would be a suggestion.
I like it. I don't know that I have the full picture, but I think that's a really good start to a thought process for Nate and Joe to consider. We're going to be meeting this week about it. So Brian, if you wouldn't mind stopping by their office and just kind of talking through it, your thought too, because I think we have a lot of different potential ways to do it. The goal is to get kids on campus to do the testing so that we can really control for as much as we can control, so that we can use the data, right? If it doesn't work at home, or, you know, our parents aren't able to facilitate it for whatever reason, we don't want it to be a waste of time. So thank you for thinking through that.
I just really want to say thank you to Brian quickly as a member of this group, and also just on our staff in general for all he does. But he's helped lead an initiative to revise a little bit of our facilitated schedule a bit that really has led to some great outcomes. Fewer teachers in rooms to kind of limit some of the exposure, some consecutive planning opportunities for teachers, but also time where they could attend IEP and 504 meetings on a little bit more regular basis, cutting down some of the transitions. He really took a lead on looking at our facilitated schedule critically, and made some awesome recommendations. So kudos to Brian.
Thanks,
I
Brian.
want to tag team on that, because Brian's also helping us over here at the elementary building with trying to promote some, you know, great SEL amongst staff and students. So Brian is also extending his many talents over here. So we really appreciate the overtime, Brian. Thank you.
And I know I appreciate it so much. And I know we have other teachers who are stepping into those roles too. And I just want to acknowledge it takes a village all the time, but especially now, it takes a village of people to make it work. So I see so many just amazing people on this call. Just thank you for all that work. All right, folks, we're 5 minutes over now, and I try not to keep people over. I know everyone's busy. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you in 2 weeks, and we'll have great things to report then too. Have a good one.